All right, so for this week, we are gonna work on my 1964 Rambler 770 Classic. Its name from 64 was actually 770 Classic. So it kind of has like that shoebox style, but with a little bit more styling than I would say the Novas of the time. I really like the body style. So in case you didn't know, this was my first car, and I actually sold it right before I got married. And then kind of you always want your first car back. So I kept looking. And then I knew police officers and people that worked in law enforcement. I would give them the license plate, the VIN. They couldn't find it for some reason, or they were saying they couldn't find it. And then all of a sudden just had that feeling, look on Craigslist, and boom, there it was. I'll show you a picture of there it was. So it's kind of funny. I was telling my son that since I first owned the car till now, the car's been more out of my possession than it's been in my possession, which is funny. So the car is nothing special, realistically. It's an automatic with a tiny engine. And on top of all that, brake parts are hard to find. Components on the inside are hard to find. I've actually had to make my own brake components for this. The whole thing is basically a boat anchor of just hard to find parts that you'll spend like 10 times the amount for just stupid parts, and they're not worth anything unless you have a Rambler. So under here, now brace yourselves. There it is in all its glory, a 196 straight six. So 196 cubic inch straight six. Yeah, it's quite the dog. The other things that are kind of odd and notable is it has an enclosed drive shaft. So there's an enclosed drive shaft between the front and the back. And then I'm not sure what this rear end is called, but it has a rear end, but then it has like a bar going from the bottom to this corner to that corner back up. So everything on this was kind of odd. I remember going to car shows and they talked about rumors of AMC around this era, just kind of buying all the parts they could from other manufacturers. So this could have Jeep parts. It could have just all kinds of different parts. I actually bought one of those interchange manuals to see if like, oh, well, maybe the brake spindles are from this and then that from this. I had no luck. I spent like a ton of money buying those manuals and couldn't find anything with this. Chevy, perfect. You know, just show you across the model range, everything that was the same, but this, not so much. So I thought what we could do is talk about what my future plans are and then actually get this dog started up so you can hear what a 196 from 1964 sounds like if it'll start up. So here's the interior. I don't know, it's not so bad. These are obviously not the original door panels or anything like that. And the guy before me just took everything out from here and just threw a radio in there. All of this is stock and factory, and it's held up well. It looks good. You know, I think there used to be a dash pad right here that was taken out. But when I first owned this, so this is in case I didn't say, this is my first car. When I first owned this, nothing up here worked at all. The only thing that worked was the headlights. That was it. Every now and again, I got the brake release to work, but other than that, none of that ever worked. Radio never worked. So yeah, the whole thing, like nothing ever worked. You got wires hanging out of everywhere. So, all right, so my idea was to chassis swap. Well, sort of chassis swap, because this is a unibody. In case you don't know what that means, it doesn't technically have a frame connecting the rear tires to the front tires. Not like that truck, or even this Buick. They all have a frame connecting everything. This was like in an effort to be maybe lighter, cheaper, things like that. So chassis swapping it gets kind of difficult at that point. So the wheelbase is 112 inches. Now, trying to figure out exactly what's 112 inches or close enough. According to Google, it's a Gen 5 Camaro. Now, pretty sure from my research, a Gen 5 Camaro is also a unibody. So to me, that's just going to be a whole different can of worms. My initial thought was to use maybe a C7 Corvette, and not for necessarily the performance of it, but because of the aftermarket infrastructure that it has. Like there's people building parts for every part. You could buy the whole thing over again with how many aftermarket parts there are. The other thing was the Corvette is actually a full frame. So I was liking that idea. The problem is the Corvette wheelbase is about 5.5, 6 inches smaller. So, but since the Corvette's wider, we'd already have to do, let's say, fender flares here. And if we're already doing fender flares, we can move the tire around. Similar with the back, we can move the tire around slightly. You know, maybe take a bit more out of the front than out of the back, because the back's pretty close to this. So having a fender flare start from there coming out, you know, might be just a bit more aggressive than I'm hoping for. So, and especially the more further forward we go, that aggressiveness that it would be. So maybe it would be, we'd make the front compromise the most, but initially I was thinking about a Corvette just because of the aftermarket parts and the fact that it had a full frame. The other way to go would be, well, the other reason I wanted a Corvette was a manual transmission. So trying to find something around this wheelbase with a V8 manual transmission starts to get pretty difficult with a full frame, unless you guys know of anything. The other easy probably way, and probably really cheap, would be like a Crown Vic. You know, the wheelbase is actually longer than this, but a Crown Vic would probably work it would work because it would just be so cheap, because we could probably pick one of those up pretty cheap. So the only other idea is that we buy something that is completely the wrong wheelbase and then cut the frame down, shrink it down. I even had a thought for a while of the Silverado over here. The problem is I'm not trying to build an off-road Rambler, you know? So those are my thoughts. I'm not sure when we're gonna get fully started on just gutting this and kind of just lifting up the body on this and then tearing everything off of a different frame and kind of setting it down, but we'll see. So right now, I think we should just try to get this old girl started so we can hear what she sounds like, because it's been a while. All right, she's gonna need a battery. The only battery I got is way too big for this thing. So hopefully that means it'll have plenty of power. And then we'll have to see if the points are even working, or whether we're gonna have to get into there and sand those down. Man. Oh, it's literally a nylon locking wing nut. It's like, why is this thing so hard to get off? Oop, there it goes. I guess I'm gonna get in there first, see if it turns over. Oh yeah, just like I remembered. Horrible amount of whining. All right, so we turned it over. Doesn't seem like there's spark going on, typical. So just gotta check the points, I'm guessing. Let me just evict some of these spiders here. I'll just get a little piece of sandpaper and get in there. I was almost kind of surprised how much the other cars seem to be completely fine. Cars that have points that I have, leave it to the Rambler to have the issues. So I just went and got some 320. I'm letting it clamp on it and then just kind of pulling it out. A nail file might have been a little bit better. I'm not sure how far I'm willing to go with this, because we're not going to drive this car the way it is. Because I could tell you guys a lot of stories how this car has probably almost killed me. Because there's no power brakes. You can't find parts, at least when I was looking a long time ago, you couldn't find parts for any of the braking systems. So you hit the brakes and then it seemed to be sporadic, like all of them would work, and then you hit the brakes again and then the back left would work. So then it kind of pull you into a skid as you're coming to a stoplight. So it was never fun, never good. Go ahead. Hit your foot on the gas when you're doing it. Go. Hit the gas a little harder. Stop. You hit the other car.
Put itself in reverse.
All right, you can see we got it started. It actually sounds decent from up here, but one of the things you might have noticed was it just kind of throws itself into gear, and it kind of threw itself into reverse. Luckily, it didn't get far, and the C20 isn't having any of that. So I think there was a tiny bit of a love tap there. There you go. It has been started. All the trouble we were having was with the points. They're just horrible. I think they would need to be changed. But that's it. It does run. It's okay, but like I was saying before, all of this, I mean, you could see all of this right here. I mean, there's more stories I have about this where I think I've had the transmission built twice, and it was hard to even find a shop that would do it, but I found a shop to do it, and it had to get rebuilt twice when I had it when I was younger. And then there was also another time when it was in the driveway right here, and the transmission caught on fire in the morning, and the whole car caught on fire. And I jumped over that cinder block wall right there as the car was on fire. The fire department came, and literally, I think one of the windows was down, and they put the fire hose in through one of the windows and just filled up the car. It was very much like a cartoon, because I remember I got in like this and just water came pouring out. So I fixed the harness because it was, I believe it was, right here, this whole part of the harness right here got cooked. I fixed all that. There's just so much on this that is, it's unbelievably obsolete. It is, I kind of feel like it's a bit dangerous on the road. And the problem is the parts that you would find to buy for this are pretty expensive if you can find them. And then on top of all that, they're not going to be any better than this was in 64. So that was the idea for the chassis swap, so that I can enjoy this car, I can enjoy the styling, I can have fun with it, but then still have some brakes, still have some get up and go, things like that. But let me know what you guys think. This is the 64 Rambler 770 Classic. So if you guys know of anything else in that wheelbase of 112 inches that would be, you know, basically like a turkey, we're just going to pull everything that's Rambler technology down there and just keep the cool body styling. So if you know anything that would work with this, put it down in the comments. But if you want to see more on this, there'll be a playlist. But see you later.